So, good day, friends. This is Dr. Bob Hamilton, and you have tuned in today to the Hamilton Review, where kids and culture collide. So, before we begin our show, I want to say thank you from my heart for tuning into our podcast. It means so much to me. I know that you are summertime, and I know what you're doing. You're trying to get ready for the 4th of July. You got your kids running around. They're in camp. They're in swimming classes. They're doing all the things that kids should be doing, and you're the one behind them all. So thank you for making a little sliver of your time to spend with us. It means a lot to me. And today is going to be a very special day, worth your time, because we're going to be talking about the 4th of July, which is coming up next week, as you all know. And to help me in this conversation, I have enlisted a remarkable man. His name is Sam Gallucci. And Sam has a lot going on. He is a pastor, first of all, in the Ventura Oxnard area in California here. He's also a candidate for Congress. We'll talk about that. But before we get to all of that, I just want to say, Sam Gallucci, welcome to the Hamilton Review.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. It's just an honor and pleasure to be with you today.
And I want you to know, Sam, I feel the very same thing to have you. It's good to see your face on this Zoom call. Sorry, friends, we're still doing Zoom calling on these shows. I think we all know that Zoom is a very convenient way of communicating, but I do miss the old-fashioned, pressing the flesh, as they used to call it. I don't even know, what do they say now? I don't even know what to call it.
I don't know.
But being actually in person with people is still my preference. That being said, as I have already alluded to, this is kind of my 4th of July show. And I happen to be, for those of you who know me, you know that I'm a patriot. I love America. I love the opportunities that America has given to our family, certainly my family personally, but the Hamilton family, larger Hamilton family. And I know, Sam, you feel the same way.
Yes.
But before we get to that, I want you to kind of back up in your life and tell us a little bit about your story, where you're from, where you're raised, why you're doing what you're doing, and also you can segue that into why the 4th of July and the Independence Day means much to you. So
Sure,
I'm going to stop
absolutely.
talking, and you've got the microphone, Sam.
Well, thank you, Dr. Bob, and just to all the listeners out there, greetings. Yeah, my American story is truly so tied to the 4th of July. My grandparents came to this country as immigrants through Ellis Island, and I was born in New York. After 2 years, my parents moved to California, where I have been raised. So I'm a Californian through and through, like so many of our generation, my generation. We were transplants or immigrants to California, and really have this incredible gratefulness in my heart to this American experiment and what it means to my family. We had a great, loving family, and I was raised in Southern California and ended up at San Diego State and was privileged to be on the ground floor of the tech industry. 1981, technology was still primarily for the Fortune 500, and I joined IBM to bring the technology to the middle-sized companies. But then in '84, the world changed forever. Independent software became available. Programming language to write software became available. And I jumped ship and joined the wild, wild west of the beginning early days of the software industry. And as we know, it made history. It's changed history. And became it was just at the right place at the right time, became one of the founders of an industry called customer relationship management. I was I met the Lord personally in San Diego State in 1980. And so was a Christian, married, had a wonderful family, climbed the corporate ladder at 40 years old, pretty much had everything financially, but was really struggling in my marriage. I was traveling all the time. And so at 40 years old, I was executive vice president, general manager of a major tech company called PeopleSoft. I had bodyguards. I traveled on the corporate jet. I was trained professionally for radio and television and doing speeches in front of 30, 40,000 as a luminary in my field, but just drifted away from my faith. And God got a hold of me in a miraculous way, and came home and left that life, and basically kind of rekindled my relationship with my wife. Wrote several books. One of them is about that story, Road Warrior. A lot of people have used that to be blessed. When you travel for work, how to protect your integrity, your life, and your faith. And then God put a call on my life from tech pioneer and entrepreneur to pastor. And so I made that jump, and have been a pastor. So the first 40 years, I served my family. I served the businesses that I ran. That's the first 20 years. The last 20 years, I've been serving the community as a pastor. And pastoring this church has been the greatest honor of my life. I've started 4 nonprofits. The first is with homelessness, and we've helped over 4,000 homeless off the streets permanently. We have a women's shelter, transitional living, walk-in center we had for quite a while. The second is working with the undocumented migrants. That ministry is thriving. The third is rescuing pastors and children from the over-sexualization of our society. And the fourth is an education platform that brings low-cost private school, homeschool, hybrid for families. And so that's a little of my story. And I will tell you, Bob, that the 4th of July means so much to me. I can't thank God enough for this nation. And when I think about the 4th of July, and obviously we're celebrating the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. It's not just that document, but the inspiration.
So Sam, let me just correct you.
Yes.
We're actually celebrating the 249th anniversary, because next year is the 250th, because 1776 to 2026.
Oh, that's right.
So,
that's right.
So
It's
sorry, I don't mean to stop.
It's 2026. I'm a year ahead of myself.
I can see that.
I'm so
we're
excited.
249. You're very, very close. I would give you
We're close,
give you an A- for that answer, but 250 is next year.
And
By the
that's
way,
next year.
We've already booked our trip to Washington, D.C. We want to be there because I mean, it means a lot to me. So I think that I'm going to be one of many, many, many people who are going to be there. But anyway, so tell us about why. By the way, what country did your family immigrate from?
Both immigrated from Italy.
Okay. I mean, I would imagine with a name like Gallucci, but I don't want to assume things.
Yes.
Okay. Forgive me. Go ahead. Keep going.
No, that's great.
No,
and I appreciate that. So 4th of July for me is so significant because it reminds us, beyond just our independence, it reminds us of what God did in this country. And I think that's the part to me that sometimes gets lost in translation. This extraordinary group of Christians that come over for religious freedom from the tyranny of England, and they end up, these pilgrims, right? And here they end up out of the tyranny of the English monarchy at the time, and they're together and they're looking and say, how do we govern ourselves? And a pastor was there and pulled out the Bible and went to the Old Testament and took the only form of self-government ever invented, which was what God created for the Israelites, where the Israelites, that God was their king. God was their king. God was the sovereign, and then they were ruled. It was a self-rule and regulation, and it was this extraordinary model of governance that God created that never existed on the earth. And here are the pilgrims. They look, how do we govern ourselves? And this pastor pulls out the Bible and reads, and they decide, right, with the Mayflower Compact, to create a model that mirrored what the Bible said. So for me, the most important thing that truly gets lost in translation, I think, too much on the 4th of July, is not just our independence, but the inspiration from God that it came from, the incredible thing that God did on that day that ultimately came to the documents and our independence.
Yeah. Sam, you're so correct. I think that there's a tendency to I think to whitewash all of our holidays a little bit,
Yes,
and we forget we turn Fourth of July rather than Independence Day. We make it Fourth of July, which was a date on the calendar. We know what that means, but it becomes a day to have a barbecue and have a day off from the office. But the origins of our nation were incredibly based in the Judeo-Christian mindset. And for
right.
those people who don't know that, they may feel like, well, wait a second, you're mixing religion and politics. Not really. You're just articulating a truth,
That's right.
a foundational truth. And these people, as you know very well, were people of faith. They weren't they certainly weren't atheists. They certainly were not people who didn't have a deep reverence for God. Everyone wasn't necessarily a Bible thumping Christian, but they did understand the principles. And you know what? Thank God they do. Thank God they did.
That's right.
And and thank God that we have the country that we have today, 200, nearly 250 years later. I interrupted you. Keep going.
No, I think, Dr. Bob, that's so true. And what's really amazing to me, when you look at the roots of our Independence Day that we celebrate on July 4th, pastors were in the center of everything that happened. And that's what's so extraordinary. And that to me is the thing that has been lost that I pray gets resurrected again, because it was a pastor that guided them to start this move that ultimately turned into the Declaration of Independence. And what most people don't realize is the Declaration of Independence came from a series of sermons of pastors in that era. In fact, it came, revival came, George Whitefield came to the land, and this enormous revival broke out in America in the and ultimately it was that revival that sparked the inspiration, right, and the courage to seek independence from Britain. And
Right.
and for the first 100 years of our independence, everything was vetted through the pastors. It was this righteousness and this justice, this righteous cause, and this righteous cause for freedom. And prior to America, at that time in history, we were the only nation in the world that established this form of governance of this republic where the people were the sovereign and the government simply were caretakers. They were stewards of this Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. These extraordinary documents that that the founders said frequently came from inspiration from God, right?
That's right. No, that you're absolutely right. And I mean, think of why. You have to realize that the Pilgrims landed at 1620 in Massachusetts there, and so we're talking about 150 years before the actual Declaration of Independence. So it wasn't. This was a there was definitely an evolution. I mean, obviously, they were initially when they were first there, they were just surviving.
Right,
And as we all, those of you who know history know that the initial pilgrims and the loss of life that first winter was substantial. They lost several of their members. It wasn't that many of them really, but they lost them during that very, very harsh winter between 1620 and 1621.
right.
So it took a while to kind of get their feet on the ground before they came to the point of making that Declaration of Independence. But you're talking when you talk about George Whitefield. When did he minister? Because I think he was in the early 18th century, which would have been in the 1720s and 30s. Is that
That is
correct? I
correct.
don't
That
know
is
those.
correct. And
Okay.
what happened was, what's interesting about our independence that I think is also missed is it was the contrast between this self-governance model that organically developed and the tyranny that Britain came, and obviously taxation without representation, the Boston Tea Party, all of these events, but they all centered around what God had established, that the people grabbed onto, and how that same thing that they ran away from actually came and was controlling them. And so here you have these two forms of governments clashing, and we need to remember our history, because it is exactly what we're facing yet again, this invasion of this woke governmental mind virus, right? It's this cancer that attempts to dilute and ultimately take over to fight once again the very fight for our independence that we won, and to get our independence, right? It's really that same fight again, and that's
Yeah.
why it's so important that we celebrate this and understand its roots.
Well, I think that when one of the things that inspires me and I think about is the idea of self-governance. And that, I mean, when
Yes,
we talk about self, that's talking about me and you,
that's right.
as individuals, as families, as communities. There's that sense of you're responsible. It isn't your, I mean, one of the things that does bother me is the overreach of government.
That's right.
I think we saw a little bit of that during the COVID era, where there was a great overreach of government. There was some demands put on the people, and now looking back 5 years later, we see that the overreach, and even people who, listen, I had a great respect for the COVID virus. I want everyone to know that it wasn't like I was going, "Oh, this is ridiculous," because the legacy virus was a bad virus. It killed some of my dear friends. So and also, certainly for older people who got COVID, they got sick, certainly with the initial virus that came out.
Yeah,
That being said, despite the backdrop of that, there was definitely gigantic overreach, and that's what you're talking about. You're talking about the
exactly.
government reaching in, but that's one thing. I'm talking about government reaching into your life more forcibly in other areas as well. So this idea of liberty is something that we have to kind of appropriate for ourselves individually. That
Yes,
we have the
yes.
liberty to to kind of do what we want to do, but we have to also have a sense of self-governance, so we're not debauching ourselves and we're not also infringing on the rights of other people.
Bob, that's so true. And when I think of self-governance, self-governance requires responsibility. And we cannot forget that it is our responsibility to steward well that self-governance, which that responsibility comes with taking action in our community and our lives, right? And not succumbing to the temptation that to let somebody else govern us, or somebody else control us, right? And it seeps in so so just this deceptively. I am old enough to be privileged to have my uncles that served in World War II, and my father-in-law that served in World War II, and I am absolutely feel so privileged to have them in my life as a young boy growing up, the great generation and what they went through to fight for our country in World War II. Just extraordinary, their sacrifice. And I think of that sacrifice, and here we are. And, and one of the concerns that I constantly have is that we do a good job of passing on the sacrifice of many generations to the younger generation for the sacrifices they made to protect that independence, to protect our nation and the sovereignty of our nation and all that it means. But I had one uncle who was a tank commander for General Patton, and another uncle who was a paratrooper that paratroop behind enemy lines on D-Day, and so just extraordinary stories, and extraordinary stories of the family members that came to this country, and their sons and daughters went to war, first generation. And and as I listen to their stories, as I remember their parents, so my grandparent, my grandparents, um, they never complained about leaving their country and coming to this country, and then all of a sudden letting their sons and daughters go to war. And in fact, they saw it as a great honor. And so the 4th of July also to me, Bob, means to remember the sacrifice, that to remember the high price of freedom, and to pray to that God gives us the wisdom, the courage, the strength to guard and protect it. It's a time not just to celebrate, but to recommit our lives to doing what we can in our circle of influence to guard and protect the freedoms that are so precious, and I want to tell you, so rare today in the world.
Yeah, no, extremely rare. I do, that I travel a lot to do medical missions, and I'm always happy to come back to America. What can I say? Every time I come
Yeah.
back, I go, thank you, God, for America. So Sam, as people celebrate Independence Day, do they get to have hamburgers and hot dogs?
I don't know. I don't know any other way to do it. Now they call them smash burgers, and they smash them down.
Yeah,
And like that's a special thing that they're smashed.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that and listen, we are a people who want to celebrate and be happy and enjoy our families and jump in swimming pools and oceans and lakes and streams and have a great, it's pretty hot usually 4th of July. So have a
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful summer day. But in the midst of that, all of that, I think it's important that we look up and say, wait a second, remember the deeper meanings of this whole thing.
That's right.
And remember what this date really means for us, because listen, friends, those of you listening, I don't know, where do you want to live? You want to move to a different country? Do you want to name a country? I won't name any names, but are you happy you're American? I hope you are. And I certainly am. I'm so thankful. I mean, from my heart, I am thankful for the opportunities. Are we perfect? We're not perfect. We're far from perfect. But in fact, we're gonna use that. I want to segue to something else that you're doing. So Pastor Gallucci, Sam Gallucci, former people. I remember people software. Is that
PeopleSoft.
what
Yes.
PeopleSoft? I remember your company very well. Um, are they still around?
No, they were acquired by Oracle years ago.
Okay, there we go. So former PeopleSoft guy, now pastor. Okay, you've lived about 10 lifetimes here, Sam. In his name of his church, by the way, is called Embrace, like give people a hug. Embrace Church is in
Yes.
Oxnard. Is that
And
correct?
Oxnard, correct.
Okay, Oxnard. Okay, I said Ventura, Oxnard, which is an adjacent city. So you do, you have I met you, Sam. One time we did a medical outreach with you guys
Yes.
up there at Embrace Church. And frankly, I said, I forgot the name of the congregation. But anyway, and we actually did a medical outreach when you
We
guys
did.
were doing your other thing, which is you certainly do ministry. You share with people the good news of Jesus. You give food, you give
Yes.
them clothing. I mean, I was
Correct.
amazed by what you were doing up there.
Thank you.
Tell people a little bit about this thing that you call treasured harvest.
Yes. So it's quite an extraordinary story, and it does actually tie with what we celebrate on the 4th of July. So Treasured Harvest was birthed actually out in the midst of a crisis. We had a significant homeless outreach, which was the first nonprofit called the Kingdom Centers, and we were bringing churches together to address homelessness in our local community through the love of Jesus Christ and the model of Christ, and it was extraordinarily working well. And about 7 years into doing that, not enough Christians voted, and a very liberal, non-Christian, anti-Christian city council basically was in the majority, and they decided to starve out the homeless. So they shut down all the food kitchens. They came to our church and said, you know, what you're doing during the week, we don't think is church. You know, feeding the homeless and caring for them and letting them stay in your church, we don't think is church. You need to shut that down, and you need a special permit. Your religious permit doesn't allow you to do that. And so we had this major First Amendment issue that the Constitution provides us. And so we were shut down, actually, and we were in federal court. And we had all this food, we had all of this resource. And because we were feeding and caring for so many homeless, we were doing daily chapel services, and we would feed, we would eat together around those at our church. We'd let them stay and do Bible studies. We'd let them use our shower. We'd let them do their laundry, a real bathroom. And it was an enormous, it was making an enormous difference, and very well done. No complaints up to that time. But the city overreach shut us down. We're holding on to our First Amendment rights. And it was really a dark period when this Hispanic couple started at our church and said, Pastor, you have all this food piling up and no place to give it. My mother lives at a mobile home park in Oxnard. They could sure use that food. So we piled it all in a van, and we went to this mobile home park that I had passed, Bob, hundreds of times and didn't even know it was there. And so we pull in, and all these under 5 foot, 4'3", 4'5" Hispanic people come out, and big smiles on their face. They're greeting me, Pastor, very gracious. They're taking the food. And I turn to my friend Lou and I go, who are these people? And they go, Pastor, these are the undocumented migrant farm workers. They're Oaxacans, and they don't speak, their native language is Mixteco. So they have to learn Spanish to work the fields, but they are the forgotten people among us. And I remember the Lord saying to me at that time, Sam, do you love me? Feed my sheep. And it was this extraordinary moment with God where here I am, this white 6'2" gringo, I guess. And but God had called me to these people. And so we came back, we set up some chairs, and we started to share about how much God loves them, and that he sent his son Jesus. One of them raises their hand, and Mixteco asks the question. Their 12-year-old son, who's in the public school system, says, it translates, it's a language I'd never heard. It didn't sound like Spanish at all. And so it was a unique language. And the son turns to me and says, my mother wants to know, who's Jesus? And so that really started a mission, a local mission field. And our DNA was reach the people that nobody is reaching, reach the most vulnerable among us. And so we had the homeless thing on the shelf. It was in litigation. It had been shut down by the city of Ventura. That's in my book, A Love That Nobody Wants. It's quite an extraordinary story. And so we started to bring the food to these incredible people. And we realized that they were a forgotten people group. They were caught up in an unbelievable political nightmare, full of fear. Nobody was really caring for them. Everybody was talking about, these people, but it became such a political mess, and everybody talked about it, but nobody actually did anything, right? So we started to just care for them.
Yeah.
Much needed food, clothing, and then care, literally, and their kids. We started to work with the kids after school programs. They were target for being trafficked for gangs and drugs, and it turned into this incredible ministry of our church. We did crusades, and over 4,000 came to our crusades, and they were really blessed by the resources that we brought. And so that's Treasured Harvest. We have over 68,000 undocumented farm workers in Ventura County, and we really started to care for them, Bob.
So this leads, by the way, but we did the medical team in that.
Yeah, that's where, yes.
I mean, that
You
was
were
where we
there.
were at. So I remember exactly what you're talking about. That was, friends, that was during the period of COVID, and we were unable to really go abroad. We typically take our medical mission trips abroad We were last year, we were in Liberia. We were this year in Salvador. We're going to go back to Liberia this fall. But so we were kind of shut out of the international world because of COVID. But so we did things locally. We went up to Oxnard and we had a couple, two or three teams up there, which was fabulous. Um, Now you're dealing, okay, you said a word here, Sam, which I think everybody heard, and that is the word undocumented, which means that they're here, many of them illegally.
Correct.
And we currently have a situation going on at Washington, D.C., where there is a effort to really get the undocumented out of the country. Um, you are you're kind of an interesting guy, I have to say, because you're kind of doing all these things which don't quite fit, you who you look like. So
Right.
you're now kind of dealing with this ICE situation.
Yes.
I certainly understand ICE. I think that we're trying to get rid of some of the bad hombres that have come, and they have records, they have police rap sheets from their own countries, and now they're here. We worry about that, of course, if they're doing drugs and all that kind of stuff.
Of
But you're
course.
talking about thousands of undocumented farm workers, and tell
Correct.
us your take on this because I think this is
Absolutely.
very important for people to hear.
Yeah, no, and I really appreciate you asking because for me, this is very personal. So we have over 200 of these undocumented farm workers. They do not have papers, so they are legally here at this point, but they have been here for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And so this is more than a talking point or a concept. This is family to me. These are men and women we've grown to love. And here's my take on it. Um, uh, we have it's all our fault that we have this problem for so long. This problem has been around for the last 50 years, and it's as much America's fault as it is these immigrants' fault because we have not passed immigration reform to address the issue when we've had Republicans in power and Democrats in power, and now you have these two separate populations. You probably have, I'm guessing, 10 million that are working merit-based workers. They've been here for 10 plus years. They're the silent majority and they have been working. They have no other criminal record. They love America. They're desperate to be a part of the American dream. Their kids were born here. Their kids are grown up. In fact, their kids have intermarried with legal children of parents, right? And they are struggling for their identity. And then you have another 10 or 20 million, God only knows, that crossed the border the last 4 years. And frankly, it is such a mess because the Democrats are using this issue. They've done nothing to solve the issue. They've weaponized immigration for their own gain and talk, gain a lot of money, but have no intention of solving the problem. They use, and I'm going to use the term, I'm going to call it fear porn, to totally encapsulate these people in deep fear. They've conflated these two populations and continue to highlight the problems, but never with a solution. All they want to do, frankly, is keep them enslaved in this bondage because they've had plenty of opportunities to solve this. Then you have the rest of the country that is just so fed up with the open borders and people pouring in, and they want the problem to be solved. And we all agree that those that have come in this country that were unvetted under the last administration, the vast majority of them need to go. We just don't know who's here. And there's millions that came in that haven't integrated in. And so here you have this perfect storm that we've caused ourselves as much as anything else because we haven't addressed it in the last 40 years. And so we have this incredible mess. I,
Yeah.
and that's what I know. And so, Bob, I had over 100 of my congregants come to me at the beginning of the year and say, Pastor, help. I'm really afraid. Now, these are people, every one of these 100 have been here at least 20 years. I mean, so these are people that have been here a very long time,
Yeah.
and they don't have any criminal other record. They've been working the fields. my wife has cared for their kids the last 12 years, and she's now in her second generation, where the kids have graduated and are now, they were born here, they were raised here, incredible, hardworking people. And people say, well, why didn't they try to get, documents? And to that, I'd say they did try. They've tried several times. The system is such a mess, and it is so politicized that they'll start down a path, then there's a change of administration, then the rules change, then the lag time goes out so far that they can't actually get it done. The legal expenses are outrageous that are imposed on them. It's a circular thing that literally gives them no hope, to where they just literally go back to work and live in fear, because that's the situation.
Yeah.
So I have 100 of these folks that are in that merit-based category, and they came to me and said, help, what do we do? So I basically did the research. My team did research of, okay, what was the last legal program for farm workers? And we found it was the Becerra program. Becerra program was in place in the 60s and 70s, and it was actually worked very well, and until the government corrupted it. You got very corrupt by government in Mexico and in America. But the Becerra program actually worked, and they were given legal documents to work the fields, and they could come back and forth during the picking season as often as needed, as the demand needed. And it literally was a good program. It needed some reform for sure, but it gave a legal basis from which other reform could have absolutely been done and needed. Well, in that was a questionnaire. This questionnaire was the basis for certifying who qualified as a Becerro. That questionnaire has been in every attempt of Congress, a failed attempt of Congress, to pass immigration reform for the farm workers, to get them a path to legal paperwork. We're not even talking citizenship. We're just talking about legal documents here for they work the field. So we found, it's called a Certified Ag Worker Questionnaire. The very last attempt was in 2022, the Farm Workers Authorization Act, and this questionnaire was in there. So we took the questionnaire out, and we've been vetting our community to this questionnaire that really sets the standards for who is a certified ag worker. What does he look like? What are the criteria to be one? And it's so many years working the field you work for, how many hours you work a week, you certify all this. You don't have a criminal record. So we've done that to 100 of our farm workers, and then we give them the better advice. And of course, right now, God only knows what the best advice is. It's a moving target.
Yeah.
With our president, but they're given a lot of bad advice by the radical liberals. And one of the worst advice is, if they get stopped, say nothing, do nothing, and show them a red card that says I have rights. Well, if ICE is out, and now ICE has been out in Oxnard a lot. We've seen them actually in our fields. They've been out a lot, but they have for the most part, there have been a couple of people that have been caught up, which by the way is not new. They're in the wrong place at the wrong time, but they're always going after a really bad guy. And if others are there at the same time in this administration, they'll get swept up. But they're not going directly after them. They're looking for a known criminal. And so if they are, and take the advice of the left to say nothing, then you're going to get detained. And if you get detained, you're going to get booted out. So we gave them better advice. We said, if you get stopped and you're alone, stay at peace. God is with you. The fact is, you're not here legally. You knew that, we knew that, and we're going to believe that what the enemy intends for evil, God will use for good. America has a right to do this. That is our laws. But cooperate with ICE, answer their question, tell them who you are. When they ask for papers, show them this certified ag worker card, and it's a laminated card with all the answers. And none of our certified ag workers have been detained. 2 of them have been stopped. And I read that. They did a quick fingerprint test to see if they had any other criminal record. They didn't. They let them go. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah. So
And
that
it's
I mean that all sounds like reasonable. I think that the concern, I mean, certainly people who've been here for 10, 20 years, you have to look at them a little differently. I think that the number of people who poured over the border, and the problem is that, listen, people want to come to America. That
right.
should be a little bit of a, a feather in our cap in a funny way. But people are still trying to come here to embrace the American dream that we've talked about. I have no problems with that. My grandparents came to America. Your parents came to America. We are a nation of immigrants, and we need to continue to be. But I think we need to vet people,
Right.
and that is what was not done under the last few years here. So, anyway, I think that's that. I think you're hopefully, Sam. Clear minds will kind of
Right.
take over, and will because you're trying to figure out who's who and who's a bad hombre. Then these guys do need to go back. Sorry,
Absolutely.
we certainly don't want them terrorizing the American citizens. That's for darn sure. So that's going to be something, and that's kind of above my pay grade, as they say.
Right.
I'm going to let
And Bob, we tell the people there's no guarantee this will keep you from being detained, but
yeah,
it gives ICE a data point to decide what to do.
yeah.
And so it's better than anything. And I totally agree with you what you said. Yeah.
So I'm watching our time here, and
Yes.
I have to let you go in a minute or two. But you're running for Congress. You're running for
Yes.
Congress as a Republican,
Yes.
which is why you're throwing bombs at the Democrats. Okay, that's okay. You're a Republican. You're allowed to have your opinion and say that on my show. You're running for Congress in the 26th district, which includes what areas of California?
Yes, it's Ventura County essentially. Oxnard, Camarillo, Newbury Park, Thousand Oaks, Westlake, Moore Park, Simi Valley, Agora, and Calabasas. Correct. That's District 26. And
Okay.
I'm running
And
to unseat Julia Brownlee.
okay, so she's the current incumbent.
Yes.
So tell us what is going to be this is kind of a not fair to you, but in the next 3 to 5 minutes, tell us your platform. It can't just be you're against the opponent, which
Right.
is what,
Exactly.
I hope you have some better ideas, and I just don't like that person.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so tell us what you're up to.
Yes. So first of all, let me say samgallucci.com. Any amount helps the campaign. If you're so inclined to give any amount, you can go to samgallucci.com. I
How
am
do you spell Gallucci?
Gallucci. Sam Gallucci, GALLUCCI.com. You'll find my website and a way to give. You know, so many of the people in Congress have forgotten why they're there. And that's absolutely the case with Julia Brownlee in this district. They're supposed to be there for the people. I actually tried to work with her to no avail. But she, like so many, are working for the political elite, the pegged hard left of her party, with priorities that are very low to the primary citizens of this district. And I'm running because it's time to be represented again. I ask myself the question that I ask everybody, when it comes to your representative, do you feel you're being represented? And I really believe the answer is no. In my case, I'm running on issues that I actually have credibility on. We have to address homelessness. I've addressed it. So I'm running not just political talking points, but from a point of experience and credibility. I've addressed homelessness, and I'll address it in this district. I'm running on immigration reform. We have to fix this problem, and all of the criminals have to go, but the workers stay. I will lead the way and get that done, and I can do it with tremendous credibility that I think will translate in Congress. My education platform, education, parental rights are being taken away, and we need parental choice in education. And here in the state of California, you need the support of the federal government to bring legislation to stop the madness of taking away parental rights in education, not disclosing to the parents if the child is confused with their gender, not disclosing the transition of their kids, among vaccine mandates, among a number of other things. I actually have an education platform, and I will create an act of Congress. I will actually facilitate a bill that facilitates to get an act of Congress to make education a religious liberty item directly, highlighting that, bringing back the issue of small businesses and things we can do from working and lowering crime. These are things as a public servant of the last 20 years that I actually have done. And it's time to give this House this seat back to the people with somebody that's worked in the middle to bring us together. I do that as a community leader in all my ministries. People of every political party come together and we serve together. It's time to bring us together. It's time for us to come together and make a difference and really solve these problems and bring unity again from this tremendous diversity here in this district. And also the things that we do in this district will help every other district because of the legislative assignment that we have. So that's why I'm running, to bring this seat back to the people and make a legacy difference, because it's time to get our state back in order. And I believe federally is a key catalyst to bringing California back where it belongs. That the federal government can bring some resources like President Trump has. And that's why this race is so important.
So you're running as a Republican. Listen, our state has been governed very much by one party for a long time. I think that we are dealing, I mean, as a state, we are dealing with major budgetary issues.
Yes.
Certainly we see that in LA, LA community, LA proper, the city, and also the state of California. I have, over my lifetime, Sam, I have been involved with campaigns. I have become less enamored with politics, but I do see the value of having two parties, being able to, if you have only one party, that leads to abuse. And I think we've kind of seen a little bit of that, certainly in taxation and other issues as well. So I wish you the very best. I wish you success. I think that you are a man of action. You are a person who has been deeply involved. I mean, certainly you're deeply, deeply involved with the immigrant, undocumented aliens. Some people would call them, but they're real people.
Yeah.
And I met a lot of the Oaxacan Indians, by the way, when I was up there with you guys.
Yes.
They're beautiful people. I met them down in Mexico too, but these are hardworking people, let me tell you. So you kind of bring a different wrinkle to some of the Republican maybe impulses, which I appreciate. So best wishes to you.
Thank you.
Again, how can people find you?
SamGallucci.com is the website. Everything is there, including all my social media links. Sam, GALLUCCI.com.
Sam
Please
Gallucci.
check us out.
Okay, well, I think on behalf of both of us, we wish all of our listeners a happy Independence Day, happy 4th of July. Go out and have a hot dog for me.
Sounds great.
Enjoy your family. And Sam, you've been a blessing to me.
Thank you.
You call your ministry Treasured Harvest. Well, you're a treasure yourself, and I mean that.
You. Thank
You have a big heart. I'm telling you, you have a very, very big heart.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed. I thank you for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless you too. Okay, bye-bye. And friends, those of you who listened today, thank you for taking the time to tune into the Hamilton Review, where kids and culture collide. Let me tell you, friends, kids and culture, they need to come together when we talk about our kids and what the heritage of this country. So don't forget to do that on this Independence Day. Okay, until next time, be well. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to the Hamilton Review, where kids and culture collide. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of your day. Tune in again next week on Apple Podcast. Rate and comment and tell a friend.